All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Introduction to QuickBooks Online, brought to you today in partnership with Community Ventures Kentucky. Feel free to go ahead and drop a little introduction of yourself in the chat. Where are you watching this from? Um, and there are two sections for you to respond in this webinar format. There's a question and answer window as well as a chat. Please keep the chat to the chat. And then if you have any questions, please put that in the question and answer session. We will address those at the end. So that way we can keep everything on track and everything will be separated. I'd hate to have your question get lost in the chat amid some of the questions that we will be asking throughout this webinar. So, Intro to QuickBooks Online. Let's dive in. Who am I? My name is Paula Herkamp. I am a consultant with SBC Consulting. I am also an entrepreneur. So if you're here, you are probably a small business owner. And I have done several things, started and run several small businesses, including managing rental properties. I had a soap making and body care business. I sold handmade knit items on Etsy as well as print on demand. I have a bookkeeping practice and I do financial consulting. So I understand what it's like to run a small business. And the bookkeeping side of it is a really big piece of it. So I'm glad you're joining me today. You can find me on LinkedIn at Paula A. Herkamp. I made the A little bit brighter so you can see that there's two A's. I'm also a QuickBooks Level 2 certified pro advisor and I'm certified on payroll. So I will be guiding you through today's workshop. So what can you expect during this training? We're going to cover the items that you see here. We're going to look at QuickBooks, all the different subscription levels that there are. And this is for QuickBooks Online, which is different from QuickBooks Desktop. And I'll talk a little bit more about the differences there. We'll go through setup best practices. So if you do not have a QuickBooks account and you want to set one up, we'll talk about the few basic steps to get yourself set up and running. We'll talk about a chart of accounts as well as basic accounting terms, so that way you are a little bit more familiar with all of these words and what they mean and how they impact your business. We'll talk about the features of QuickBooks. We'll touch on the proactive versus reactive accounting methods, and we'll talk about help options available for you if you get stuck. All right. So what is your relationship with QuickBooks? Like I said, if you're here, you're probably a small business owner, but I'm curious to see, are you brand new to QuickBooks and bookkeeping in general? B, do you have a subscription, but you're a little bit lost? C, you use QuickBooks and you need help with a specific issue? Or D, you use another bookkeeping or accounting software and you want to learn about QuickBooks? I can tell you that A, B, and D are probably the best user tier. We won't have much of a chance to go into specific issues and questions on QuickBooks, but maybe you'll be able to leverage some of the troubleshooting tips that I'll offer at the end of the workshop. All right. So what is QuickBooks Online, right? You may have heard about it. It's basically an accounting and bookkeeping software. It's produced by Intuit. It's very similar to their other products, financial products like Credit Karma, TurboTax, and MailChimp. It integrates everything that you need for bookkeeping and accounting, and they've also introduced some customer relationship management features for it. The bookkeeping piece, it generates reports. It offers additional services that are easily integrated, for instance, like payments, collecting on your invoices, paying your bills and your expenses, as well as payroll, which can be very useful. This is the leading bookkeeping software in the United States, and it is extremely robust. And there are numerous third-party integrations that you can plug into QuickBooks, whether you're accepting payments or you are needing it for reporting purposes. It's extremely robust, whether you're a startup as well, or if you are a multi-enterprise company with lots of people on payroll, multiple entities that you're trying to manage. QuickBooks has kind of the capacity to handle it all, and you just have to figure out where you fit into that. Over 10 million global users, and you can access it from anywhere in the world on a website, and the address is down below. It's quickbooks.intuit.com, so it's very easy to get to. All right. So like I mentioned, QuickBooks Online is applicable if you're just starting out to if you have a giant company. Usually, most people starting out, the Simple Start is a really great option. It can handle a variety of bookkeeping and transactional needs. And you'll see at the top, like when you're first signing up, they give you 50% off for the first 3 months. And, or you can do a free trial for 30 days if you just want to poke around and see if it's good for you. These are the four different tiers that they commonly offer. And when you look on their subscription and pricing page, you'll see a whole bunch of ways where they compare all the different tier levels. Again, as you look in these columns here, it's the Simple Start, Essentials, Plus, and Advanced. Um, and you can compare the number of users. That's like the number of owners that can access it, and maybe a business partner. The accountant seats would apply to accountants or bookkeepers. And then you can just go down the list and compare all the different um, features that are offered at every subscription level. And like I said, the Simple Start is usually a great way to get your business going. It offers all of the essential items that you need from a profit and loss and a balance sheet. And it's a really way to just get started and tracking your business financials. So here again, you can compare the four different access levels. There are there's pages and pages of this. This is just a sampling. My recommendation is to start with the minimum tier. That way you're not putting up a bunch of money up front, and they will, with a few clicks, you can always upgrade your account. Similarly, you can downgrade your account with a few clicks. You don't have to like contact anybody in their help center. It's very easy to do on your own. You just go up into the menu and click upgrade or downgrade. So that's nice. You can also add features like maybe a separate bill pay or a contractor payroll separately a la carte. So you don't have to go too crazy up front and buy the biggest package. Again, start small and build up as you find that you need more features. The great news is that QuickBooks offers an app that's included with all your subscriptions. And so you can access it from your phone, from a tablet, just to dip in and do your bookkeeping on the go if you'd like to. You can also get paid from anywhere and accept mobile payments through QuickBooks. That makes things handy. You can, like I said, the customer relationship manager, the CRM that they've built in a way to email your customers with updates. You can also send the invoices directly through QuickBooks to your customers. And so they would get it and they can click through and it would go to a payment page link with certain levels of the subscription tiers that you subscribe to or a la carte options. One of the great ways to save your receipts and to attach it to the transactions is in QuickBooks. So that way you have everything in one place. So if you ever get audited or if you're working with an accountant that's in a third party or somewhere else, you never have to show up with a box of receipts. You can just say, hey, it's all attached to my QuickBooks. So that makes filing as well as an audit or just tracking down your receipts and all of your documentation really easy and put in one place. There are also a ton of new AI features. Like everybody else, Intuit has integrated AI in its QuickBooks offerings, and it's getting smarter every day. I still would recommend that you know the basics of bookkeeping because in AI can make mistakes. And it's nice to see that it's coming out and it is helping people get faster, but it's important to know the basics of what it's doing so you can audit the work and make sure that it's doing a good job. All right. Now, have any of you needed financial reports in the past 12 months? We'll talk about this later and why this is important. You can just drop that in the chat, yes or no. Okay. So now we're going to touch on QuickBooks setup and best practices. So how hard is QuickBooks to set up? It's actually very easy. I'm going to walk you through the first few steps now. Like it says on the slide, it's a user-friendly interface. There's tons of training resources available, videos that you can find that are produced by Intuit as well as on YouTube. Um, and you can learn the software fairly quickly once you get the basics down. But you should know, because I mentioned it is a very robust program, that if you don't have any experience with accounting or bookkeeping, it can take a while weeks to months, even years, to become very proficient in QuickBooks. As a bookkeeper, I'm in QuickBooks every day. Intuit is also making changes and updates to their platform, how things look, where things are, as well as features and how they connect. The basics are always the same because accounting fundamentally is the same, but the software, how it looks and how you interface with it changes a little bit, especially year to year. And if you're not in it every day, that you can also be like, I remember how to do it last month. Now it looks completely different. So it can take time. And just wanted to let you know that so you don't feel frustrated. It is a very robust program. So what do you need to expect when you're setting up your QuickBooks account? It's fairly easy. They're going to ask you some questions, have you fill in some basic information. They're going to ask you to connect your bank accounts, including your credit card accounts, any savings or checking accounts. But then you're kind of on your own. And so hopefully with some tools and definitions that I'm going to cover right now, that'll help you be able to navigate and get your QuickBooks account started. And a lot of this is also applicable to other bookkeeping tools and software too. Because like I said, accounting rules don't really change. It's just the different software and the tools that you use to manage it. They're like, what? Yeah, they just leave me on my own. Like I said, hopefully with today's tips and tricks and definitions, that'll give you some more information. As well as if you run into any roadblocks, you'll know who to contact, whether it's QuickBooks directly or finding another source to get your answers. All right. So what are some of these terms to know and best practices? Well, first, somebody might want to know, well, why do I really need QuickBooks? I can just do this all on spreadsheets. That is totally true, right? Bookkeeping is basically what money comes in for income and then what money goes out and where has it gone. That's really all you need. But if you are looking for the financial statements, as many of you have answered that you needed from the previous question, QuickBooks can generate a profit and loss or a balance sheet with a few clicks. If you put all of the information in there, with a few clicks of a button, you can change these reports from what year, whether you want it compared to previous weeks or previous months. It can do all of this, these reporting gymnastics instantly, which is fantastic. So if you're ever applying for a loan or if you want to know the value of your company, just check on the general health of how your company is. You want to generate some financial projections for some financing. They're going to ask you for these reports. Also, if you have everything in one place and you stay up on your bookkeeping, that's going to give you more time to do your business. You don't have to be tracking down all of the stuff and scrambling during tax time. If you stay up on your QuickBooks Online account or whatever accounting software you use, you have that all ready at hand. If you pay yourself, you can document very easily what you pay for. And so you're not paying too much taxes when tax season comes, and you have all the documentation to support it if you're ever audited. It's all in one place. So that gives you a lot of freedom to run your business without worrying about the financial side. So the basics, again, accounting is money in, money out. QuickBooks gives you the extra feature of running those reports within a few clicks. But again, good data in means that you get good reports, good data out. If you don't stay on top of your categorizations and keeping up on it, we'll go through categorizations a little later, you're not going to get good reports. If you put in incorrect data or if you link them incorrectly, again, the reports aren't going to work out. So it is important to know how to do the basics and keep it simple. Like, don't overcomplicate the design of your QuickBooks account, specifically your chart of accounts, because that can allow room for error and it makes things a little bit more confusing. If you just really stick with the basics and do it faithfully on a routine basis, at least, every week would be great. You don't have to be there every day like I am, but if you stay consistent once or twice a month, just so it stays fresh in your mind, then you're going to be in good shape. So bookkeeping, I get often asked, what's the difference between bookkeeping and accounting? So bookkeeping is the process of recording the daily transactions in a consistent way. A key component is that's a key component to running your business like successfully, right? Consistency is also really important because if you do it a little bit different each month, then at the end of the year, you'll look at it and that it becomes bad data, right? If you put sometimes these charges go for marketing and the other times it goes for advertising, you're getting different data because your totals are coming out in a different way. So you want to be consistent as well as keeping it simple and clean. So bookkeeping, you're recording the financial transactions, money in, money out. It's recording those, it's make preparing those financial statements, the balance sheet, profit and loss, the cash flow statement, and it's completing payroll. So making sure that people are paid on time, that the tax withholding is happening, any payments and taxes and things like that are being paid on a regular basis if you're doing sales tax or quarterly filings. And accounting is another step up above the bookkeeping. So bookkeeping is keeping everything organized, right? So they're the organizers. If you think of laundry and you want to fold everything, you put everything in the same drawer, that's the bookkeeping. And then the accounting takes it to another level. And they usually take that financial data that's been sorted and kept all nice and neat, either by the bookkeeper or the business owner like yourself, and it produces the financial models. Whether it's projecting things out into the future, whether it's analyzing the costs of operations, looking at cash flow. A big one is taxes, right? For filing your taxes. And then helping a business owner even make some decisions, whether they're changing entity types or how is our taxes going to impact them, those big management decisions. So you have the three types of accountants: financial, managerial, and tax, and it all trickles down from that financial information that you keep all nice and neat through your bookkeeping. And it's a little more subjective than bookkeeping because it's interpretation of how do these laws and taxes and things like that apply to your business in your specific situation. Whereas the bookkeeping is fairly cut and dry. You have a transaction, you put it into a category, rinse and repeat. Okay. So the big five major categories to know are the assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. So every financial event, a transaction that happens in your business accounts will fall into one of these five categories. An asset is something that your company owns or has value. This includes cash, this includes equipment, things like that. We'll go into more detail. Liabilities are things that you owe, also the things that have value that you might owe on, whether it's part of a property. Equity is the value of your business as a business owner, whether you've put actual dollars in or if it shows profitability year over year. If you're selling the company, the equity shows up under that master category. And then income is your money in. So all the money that the business receives in exchange for the services it provides, or the goods it sells, or investments that it makes. That's income or revenue. And then expenses, you have two types of expenses. It's all the money that leaves your business, whether it's in cost of goods sold, it's a direct expense. We'll talk a little bit more about cost of goods sold, and the indirect expenses, which fall into like an overhead bucket. So cost of goods sold is a direct expense, and that's the money out or costs that you spend that in order to create an item or a service that you're directly going to sell. So if you think about the raw ingredients that a baker might get to make a pastry before they sell it. So the flour, the sugar, the butter, all of that would be cost of goods sold, including the labor that goes directly into making that one pastry. So the supply, or like even the paper liners of the cup, the cupcake cup, right? That is a supply or a material to make that product. Shipping fees, merchant fees, rental equipment. If you're a landscaping business and you rent a certain large piece of equipment to dig something out that is needed to make that installation, that would also fall under cost of goods sold. And then you have your indirect expenses, and that is the money out for things that aren't directly tied to your income. So your advertising, your rent, office supplies, your utilities, your insurance, professional fees, for accountants or bookkeepers, travel that you may make, your car, auto expenses, travel, bank charges if you get late fees or have to pay interest on items, like all of that would be an indirect expense. And then you have equity, right? Equity again is the value of your business. Let me make sure I just didn't I didn't pass a slide here. Yep, no, we're good. So equity is the value of your business. And down below, you can see there's a sole proprietorship or LLC. The They can put money into the business to seed a business, and that would be called an owner's contribution or owner's investment. And so it's using their personal funds, investing it into the business as like seed money or support money that goes in. And then you have something an owner's draw. And sometimes in an LLC, the owner pays themselves as an owner's draw. And that's taking the money from a business account and paying yourself through that way. And the business does not care what you do with the money once you draw it, because once it comes out of a business account, it is yours and it would be considered your personal income, not whatever you want to do with your personal income. It's no longer tied to the business. If it's an S Corp or a C Corp, that money going in and out would be like shareholder uh, sales or stocks and things like that. It's a little bit different. It doesn't fall into the owner's draws or owner's investments, but it still counts as equity, the valuation of your business. And the biggest thing, especially for new business owners, I say this to almost every new client that I talk to, and I always make sure that they keep the business business and personal personal. Do not commingle your personal expenses with your business expenses. You always want to create a separate business account for everything that you do in your business, a separate business checking account, separate business savings account, separate business credit card, and have all of the business transactions go through those accounts. If you are doing an owner's draw, then you can transfer money from the business account to your personal account, and that will count as your pay. But you never want to have half, like you're like, oh, I only use this one credit card or for some business, but then I use a little bit of personal. Even when you do a transaction and a purchase, I've seen people, and I'm sure you have to run two separate transactions, say at a grocery store, because some of it will be used for business, some of it will be used for personal. The more you can keep this separate, you will avoid a lot of headaches when it comes to tax time. Accountants, if it's not clear and easy to parse out what's personal and business, it can cost you a lot as they parse it out. And as we know, accountants are not cheap. And so save yourself the headache and the expense on everyone, and just make sure you do not commingle. All right. So let's shift gears into the chart of accounts. So chart of accounts is basically the accounting term for all of those master categories that we talked about, the big five, the assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. It's like subsets of the accounts within those master five. Again, we do not include any personal accounts or personal transactions anywhere in the chart of accounts, aside from owner's draw, owner's contribution. That's as close as it gets. And so an account is basically a bucket that you put a transaction in, and you categorize it into that bucket. And you want to keep it as simple as possible because that gives you more opportunity for error. Like I said, you wouldn't want one month to categorize a certain expense as marketing and then the next one is advertising the next month, because when you run the report at the end of the year, it won't really mean as much because you've done half of it categorizing it one way, categorizing another way. So if you have a very simple and concise chart of accounts, that means you don't have a lot of things to potentially, assign an expense to. And it gives you more opportunity to error. Keep it really simple and clean. Don't overcomplicate it. You can look at the historicals of how you've assigned things in the past, but the easier choices you have, and the fewer choices, the less error you have. And you can always review your Schedule C or what has been qualifiable for expenses as inspiration for the major simplified categories for your expenses. So the chart of accounts or the balance sheet always balances. And the equation that's the accounting standard is assets will equal your liabilities and equity. So you can run it at any time. You can run it at the close of the month, annually as requested for, financial evaluation, whether you're applying for a loan or you're just looking at the health of your business. It's great to run it every month. It's also a great way to catch errors, to say, hey, that looks weird. I don't think I owe that much money anymore. I thought I paid that off, and just make sure that it's correctly logged in QuickBooks. Um, It's also used for, again, determining the health of your business. And so they look at ratios like debt to equity ratio, and you can find that through looking at numbers on the balance sheet. And it's a balance sheet because it always equals, the assets is always equal to the liabilities and equity. This is a great little visual that shows you, assets, cash, machinery, land. It also includes items like inventory. Liabilities are things like debt, accounts payable, taxes payable, anything you might owe on a credit card. Equity are the amounts of money that you've paid in. Retained earnings, it's the profitability, or if you have a loss, the loss that happens by the end of the previous fiscal year that goes into the valuation of your company. And these are important, again, how healthy is your business? It helps you obtain loans, and it helps you monitor changes over time. It's also important to know that the balance sheet will not cover your brand, right? It can't cover your employee, your work culture. So when evaluating a business, there's a lot more to factor in, but the balance sheet is a financial staple in determining the value of your business. And so the other really most used report for business owners is the profit and loss statement. The P&L is, as it's often referred to, it's basically income minus expenses. So income is all of your sales minus the cost of goods sold that we talked about, all the inputs that go into doing like your direct costs, and that gives you your gross profit. And so then you get your gross profit and you subtract out your indirect expenses, right? The rent, the insurance, and all your admin fees. And that gives you your net profit or your net loss if if it hasn't been a good year or a good month. And that's basically the formula for a profit and loss. Again, income, money in, whether it's sales, interest were earned, credit card rewards, sometimes you'll get some bonuses, that is all income. And then expenses is money that is spent, paying subcontractors, whether it's cost of goods sold, whether it's expenses, direct or indirect expenses. And again, we have our cute little sketch here. And this shows over a period of time. So when I run my profit and losses, I like to do it month by month so I can compare my income for the month compared to last month, as well as all my expenses. And I can see any little upticks, and I can really read what has happened in a business through a monthly breakdown in the profit and loss. It's kind of fun and exciting to see that. And so you've got your revenue minus your expenses is income. And then at the bottom here, you have the bottom line, right? That phrase comes from the profit and loss. It tells you, is your company making money? Did you end up bringing in more money or spending more money this month or year? It can see, again, if you do the comparison over time periods, it shows you changes in expenses. It shows you what products or service offerings are most successful if you itemize out what sorts of revenue streams are coming in, whether it was a service revenue, whether it was reoccurring services, whether it was hourly services, things like that. And it kind of shows if you're a good investment. So lenders will look at this information as well. So how hard is QuickBooks to set up, right? Again, user-friendly, has lots of tutorials. If you have no prior experience, it could take a long time, but we're going to set it up, and I'll walk you through that basic process. But again, don't get frustrated. It's a robust program. When you go to the QuickBooks setup, that quickbooks.intuit.com website, and you say you're going to set it up, it will ask you to choose your plan and answer a few questions. You can put in your company name, it asks you for your role, it asks you for your business type, and you answer these questions. At this time, I also wanted to plug our YouTube channel because we have a much more detailed explanation on how to set up your QuickBooks account. It's at youtube.com/@SBC First. And you can find a tutorial on how to set this up in much more granular detail, but we're going to cover it quickly here. The next phase is going to be where QuickBooks will ask you to set up to link your bank accounts to your QuickBooks. I would skip this for now because once we're going to go first and set up the chart of accounts, and then you can go back in. But when you do link your bank accounts, you want to link every business bank account. Do not link your personal accounts, just your business accounts. All the accounts that you will be transacting business transactions. Business savings, business checking, business credit cards would go here. And then it throws you in there and you are off to the races, right? And you're like, okay, what do I do? When you first log in, this is what you'll see. You'll have a dashboard here. There's always tons of pop-up windows because QuickBooks has a lot of little tutorials to feed you. They also want to tell you of new changes. They want to tell you about any upgrades they've done. They're also trying to upsell you, so be careful of that. You'll see this bar on the left. This is kind of your master menu bar, and you can get to the apps from there. You'll also see it across the top here, and you can get to all of the settings that you need from this dashboard. So the first thing you want to do when you go to your when it gives you your dashboard, you want to go up into this little gear icon in the upper right, and and then drop down to account settings. And it'll take you to this page here where you want to make sure that all your company info is entered in there properly, because this will be used by your accountant to verify your information. You can also put your logo up in here and it'll auto-populate for your invoices. So everything will look very clean and professional. And you can go down the side here, and do all the changes and settings here. But the company page is the most important to get that set up and correct and audit that first thing. All right. And so the next step would be to understand, we've talked about the chart of accounts. And so then you go and you clean it up. So you would go into the apps, you'd go into the accounting app. You can see that there's those same master categories here, and you want to go to chart of accounts. And it'll take you to a page that looks a lot like this, where all of the accounts are listed out. And so what you would do is you would check things, all these items here in bulk, and you can deactivate them. If you go to bulk actions and you drop down to make inactive, then you can deactivate a lot of them. Sometimes if you're moving too quickly, it won't let you do that. And you can do them individually. Like if you go to one line item, do the drop down, that little caret, make inactive. That's another way to do that. And when you do make an account inactive, it's not going to delete it forever. It just makes it inactive. And so right behind this window, there's a little gear icon, and I've made a little pop out here, and then it gives you the option to show your inactive accounts in case you ever want to reactivate them. So it doesn't go away forever. You're not making a big mistake. You can always bring them back. But again, you want to simplify the palette of options so that way you're less likely to make a mistake of miscategorizing something. And this is how you would do it. Again, that setup video on the at SBC First YouTube page is really, really handy and wonderful to use as a guide for this. There are some accounts that QuickBooks does not let you deactivate just because it does need certain accounts in order to do their calculations and reporting. But whatever you can get rid of and it's not applicable to you, do downsize that because they throw in everything, the kitchen sink, just to be as robust as possible. But simplify your life. All right. So now you've gotten through cleaning up your chart of accounts. You want to link your bank accounts. So you would go to the accounting app again and go to bank transactions, and you would go link account. And then what you would do, it would guide you through a window, and you would just sign into your bank account using your banking login. So if you have multiple users at your company, make sure that the person linking the account has the credentials of the master user of the bank account. Because sometimes if you're just kind of a read-only access for a checking account, QuickBooks won't let you link that to a QuickBooks account. It wants master access to all of the files and all of the feed for your bank. So again, you would do your checking account, you would do your savings account, and any credit cards that you might have, anything that business is transacted from. And again, no personal checking accounts or accounts linked to QuickBooks. And so once that gets linked up, then as you go through the months or as you go through the days and weeks, you'll see um, here this light green outline shows you that you are looking at transactions from the checking account, from this bank account here. And then this pending bar here shows you that there's 25 uncategorized transactions. Once you categorize them, they will move over to the posted item, and excluded is very rarely used. It's either pending or posted. So if you're looking for a past transaction that has already been categorized, you can find it in the posted tab here. And so QuickBooks has a kind of play company that you can also play with. I'll give you the link a little bit later, where you can just go in and they have created a fictitious landscaping business. And that's where I pulled a lot of these screenshots from. And you can bulk categorize things. So, like, remember that piece of heavy equipment for installing a fountain for a client? That would be like a rental. And so that you could categorize that as equipment rental and post those in bulk, right? Right down here at the bottom, it shows you if you check these items and you think, and all of these are correct, you can hit post. And then if you want to do it line by line, you can just hit post here and it would just categorize that one transaction. And if you are transferring between accounts, say from a savings account to a checking account, you can also click in on a line item on your bank feed, and this gray window drops down. And you can adjust the transaction type. If you're transferring from a savings to a checking, or if you're paying a credit card, do not mark those as expenses, especially the credit card payment. That's a common mistake. The transfer is obviously transferring from one account to the other, and a credit card payment shows that you're paying the credit card down and it's looking for that transfer. If you mark the credit card payment as an expense, it will double count your expenses because it's counting it once when the expense is made when you swipe the card, and then it'll count it again if you log it as another expense when you actually pay the credit card. But if you do it as a credit card payment when you're actually paying your credit card, then you'll be good. And then you can also, in this drop-down window, you can split your transaction. So say you go to Pam Seats and she sells supplies, but she also offers some disposal fees. Um, and you can, and the total bill was $75, but you know that some of it was to supplies, like $70 to supplies, and then $5 went to disposal fees. You can match it to certain customers if you'd like, or you can leave it as is and split the transaction so that way it's appropriate. This is also great for when you purchase business items on Amazon, and some of it might be for an upcoming show, business development show that you're doing, and then maybe the other item is, office supplies that you're doing. You can split it out here in the split transaction category. And so when categorizing bank transactions, you always want to review them. Um, on the bank feed and then categorize them as they come in. You can click anywhere on the line to open that transaction. Again, that gray drop-down menu, so that way you can be a little bit more specific in how you are assigning or splitting your transactions. And you can make necessary changes in that drop-down window, as well as to look back at posted transactions and change there. And then you can add items as well. You can attach your receipts in that drop-down window if you haven't had a chance to do that already. And then say no to rules. That is something where you could set something up where anytime um, Zoom shows up and does a draw. If you have like a monthly subscription to say ChatGPT, you could set that up. But just for now, it's good for you to go through every transaction by hand to make sure that there aren't any errors. Because say there's a special Zoom webinar that you hold, and it actually is a cost of goods sold for a workshop that you're running. You don't want QuickBooks to automatically assign it to your just regular admin costs. That would go into the cost of goods sold bucket. All right, so here's the web address to the sample company for Craig's landscaping and design. If you just want to go in and play with QuickBooks, and you cannot mess anything up in here. If you categorize things and reassign things, create bills, you can pay bills, you can pretty much do everything and look at how everything's laid out and all of the features and play. As soon as it refreshes and you reload the page, everything goes back to kind of the initial practice setting. So this is how you get to it, is qbo.intuit.com/redir /test drive. All right, so I talked about the reactive accounting where you are just looking at the bank feed and attaching receipts to the transactions that come through. There's also proactive accounting where when you have the receipt but it doesn't show up on your bank feed yet, you can upload it ahead of time. Same with if you incur a bill or if you invoice a client. So these are all the proactive transactions that you can do to manage your finance. So all of the money out transactions, you can collect and store and update all of your vendors and contractor information in QuickBooks. You can track your bills and upcoming payments. You can track and pay your bills, or basically what's called accounts payable, excuse me, because you're paying. You could categorize your expenses ahead of time. So if you upload a receipt and then you categorize it during that upload, you can do it, and then you'll see in the next slide where the QuickBooks will automatically match a transaction to a previously recorded expense for you. So that saves you a little bit of time. QuickBooks will also do the 1099s. If you hire subcontractors, it can generate the 1099s for you for payment, tax purposes at the end of the year. And then income tracking, that's proactive. You can enter your customer information. If you have common products and services to build an invoice, you can create a catalog of these products and services. So that way, when you create the invoice, you just throw in 4 of these items, 6 of these items, and you have the invoice and it's all totaled out correctly and then properly categorized as well. Like at the landscaping sample company, some of the items are for design, for landscape design, and others are for actual installation services. And so if you have that attached to a product and you build an invoice, it automatically parses all of that out for you. You can track open estimates and convert them into invoices. So when someone says, yes, please make this real, and that's called accounts receivable because you will be receiving that money. And it can also track your sales tax reporting. So as I mentioned, if you do these things ahead of time, you will see there's the little AI icon, little sparkle, and then a lot of your items will be green. And that just shows that someone has pre-entered either these payments or these expenses ahead of time. And then you would just go, you would look at it. If you don't recognize it, again, you could do the drop-down window, but more often than not, you'll remember, and you would just hit match, and it would match, automatically categorize everything, post it, and your bookkeeping is done. All right. So you're chugging along, you're doing all the things. How do you know if you're doing it right? Every month we do a process called reconciliation. And this is basically where you take your monthly statements and you match it for all the transactions that have been entered in QuickBooks. And you want to make sure that everything is matching. Second way to make sure is to go through your monthly reports. Like I said, if you are looking at your profit and loss on a month to month, you can look and say, oh, why did my software tech stack expenses suddenly spike like $300? Either something's not categorized right, or you might be like, oh, that makes sense. We're gearing up for this new project, so we needed more capacity here. So we bought the larger plan. So the reports help you identify, make sure everything's on track. So on the reconciliation page, it looks something like this, where it shows your ending balance previously, and it compares it to the new balance on the new time frame. And then you would basically go through all the transactions, which are itemized out here, that these are the transactions that are listed in QuickBooks. And when you check it off, it should equal 0. This is what you're going for. And it basically shows that all of the items that are on your statement are matching the items that are entered into QuickBooks, and that means everything has been entered correctly. If you have some transactions that are hanging out here that aren't checked off and they're older, you know that maybe something was double entered. And then you can go back and you can delete that false expense. And similarly, I've had instances where things didn't go through the bank feed for like multiple credit cards, and it kind of went through a sub account of a credit card. You can catch weird little glitches like that during the reconciliation process. So it's very important to do that, just to double check. Everybody needs a good double check. All right, so we're almost 15 minutes left. So you've done all of the things and maybe you've hit a roadblock and you might need some help. What do you do? First, you need to define the issue. Is it a software issue or is it a bookkeeping issue, like a user or a data issue? If it's a software issue where you think something is glitchy, you're like, everything seems right. I think QuickBooks is just not processing this correctly, or when I click this button, it's not taking me to the right window, then you want to contact help. In the top of your dashboard, you'll see the little help icon and it says contact us. You can also search through their topics and try to troubleshoot, but it gives you the option to connect with a QuickBooks help person. And it could be a bot. They can also connect to your screen. You could do like a screen share. They will ask you to validate your your access. So that way they make sure they're talking to a person who has the right authentication to be accessing this account. It's a little bit time consuming and frustrating for something, but they will be able to help you. Usually things are resolved within 3 to 5 business days. So that's if it's a software issue. If it's a bookkeeping user issue or maybe data was misentered, you can kind of comb through and try to figure out what's going on. You can do Google, you can do QuickBooks Help. Again, they're little tutorials as opposed to the Contact Us page. You can reach out to QuickBooks. They offer live bookkeeping services. You can reach out to them. I think they may charge a little bit for that to access that. Or you could find a third-party pro advisor that's not employed by QuickBooks if something is really tangled and you need some help parsing it out. So do you still need an accountant if you use QuickBooks? The answer is yes, absolutely. Even if you do your own bookkeeping or you hire a bookkeeper to do that for you, again, the bookkeeper is just organizing everything, and the accountant is the one who will be applying tax law and helping you file at the end of the day. Um, because of the extra time that it may take you to sit online, troubleshooting QuickBooks and maybe not being as familiar with it, we always recommend having an accountant and a bookkeeper because you will probably save a lot of time and frustration at the end of the year, and you can really focus on just your business. All right, so now I'm going to stop presenting and take questions. Again, I wanted to just give my contact information. You can find me on LinkedIn. And all right, I'll
All right,
stop presenting here.
we do have a few questions. I'll go ahead and give those to you, and you can answer them live for everybody. So Andrea asks, do you have a good starter list for a chart of accounts? Is there something that she could find that she could use as a basic for what chart of accounts should be set up?
Yeah, so it's usually industry specific. So it depends what industry you do, whether you have product, obviously you would need inventory. If you don't, then if you're just service based, you don't. I would Google it. Like go to Gemini and say, hey, can I get a basic chart of accounts? Keep it as simple as possible. I want to keep my bookkeeping as streamlined as possible. And that's a great way to start. You can also consult with a bookkeeper, but if you want to do it yourself, that's a fantastic way to start.
Okay. Karen has a question. She says, is there a QuickBooks app that can work with us to scan receipts on our phone or on a plug-in app that she could
Yeah,
use?
QuickBooks has it in their app. You can use it to take photos of your receipt. Also, every account has an email address where you can take a picture and just email it to that account, and it'll show up in your receipts. It's like under apps, accounting, and then receipts. And then you would just go in there and you would tweak the details if it wasn't read correctly, because it's AI just reading a print and everybody's receipt's different. And so QuickBooks offers that. So it's very easy.
Perfect. And then the last two questions I have in here right now are about desktop, QuickBooks Desktop. So the first one is QuickBooks Desktop the same website to get that, or is it something completely different?
It is something completely different. So I was going to talk about that. Thank you for asking that question. So desktop lives in your hard drive. So it's a software that you would download. And when you save to it, it's saved to your hard drive, much like a Word file. Whereas QuickBooks, it works more like a Google Doc, where it's on the cloud, you make the changes and it's automatically saved in the cloud. If you have an accountant or a third-party user, you could just manage users and they would log in straight to your account. They don't have to get a file that's like from your hard drive. Everything's
Okay.
kind
And
of moving to QuickBooks Online. Yeah.
okay, if the person decided to go the desktop version, where would they buy that? That's the other question on here.
You can
Is
find, like, Google that, QuickBooks Desktop. I'm sure it's probably like QuickBooks Intuit Desktop, something like
okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Andrea said that you're in the
And they
health
don't they
coach.
don't talk to each other. That's an important thing too. People think, "Oh, I have desktop, I'm just going to like import it." They do not talk to each other. They're totally different systems. So that's important to know.
Okay. And I think
Yeah.
our chart of accounts question, she's a health coach. So, like you were
Yeah,
saying, maybe Google searching that kind of industry would help her come up with the right charts for that.
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Right. Like if are
Perfect.
they doing a one-off consultation, that might be a revenue stream, or are they doing a workshop? Are they doing monthly check-in with a client? Those might be different revenue streams. And yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then the other things I added throughout the presentation, I did put the QuickBooks Online test drive link in here. So anyone that wants to click that, that's available. I put in the SBC's YouTube link so that you guys could check out previous videos that we've done in the past. And then I also put the overall QuickBooksIntuit.com link in here that you can start that. So all those are clickable while this is on. So if you're interested in that, make sure you cut and paste those into your own URL for that. Are there
Mm-hmm.
any other questions? That's all I have in here right now. Anybody else? Oh, um, how to add grant income to accounting chart of accounts? How does that go
Yes.
in there?
So when you set up your QuickBooks, they give you an option to set up to change your setup to be a nonprofit. And when you get grant money, it's similar to a loan. You would just categorize it as that loan or that grant that came in. And if you need
Okay.
to tag it, so for a nonprofit, they have something, okay, it's for a profitable company.
It
Okay.
is. Okay.
Yeah. If you were a nonprofit, then you could also assign a class to it, whether it's restricted or unrestricted funding. But yes.
Okay. And that looks like the one above that was a new one as well, now that you can see these.
How do you
How
enter
do you
volunteer time
volunteer?
sessions that go towards, well, if that's not really a financial, the question is how do you enter volunteer time slash sessions that go towards certifications into QuickBooks? It's if it's not a financial transaction, if is the person being paid for that time? No.
No.
Yeah, then I would just keep track of that on a separate spreadsheet because if it doesn't have a financial impact, yeah. And
Okay.
I'm going to actually drop in this link is the YouTube video for the setup that goes more into detail of the subscription levels as well as how to parse out your chart of accounts and just drop that into the chat.
Great. Any other questions? We'll give it another minute just in case somebody's typing. Thank you, Paula. That was very informative. We appreciate that. This is a good group in here today, so that's great.
Awesome.
All right. I don't think we have any other additional questions. For those of you that are interested in these types of workshops, check with Community Ventures. They do these throughout the year with not just our group, but other folks. So check the Community Ventures group there. And yes, this link will be available on our YouTube page. Give me by next week sometime. So keep an eye on that and follow it. You'll see stuff pop up there. So otherwise, you guys have a wonderful day. We much appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.